I have to, because it's 3 minutes past, so he'll join us. Normally the questions anyway start coming a bit late, but I will use my phone on the other side to check what's happening on the other side. Where's my...
In such a busy season, yo.
Yeah, I was saying this is the last session I am doing because I am so tired. It's not funny. The year has been just too long. Somebody on social media said we've been in this, what was he saying? It's been 3 years since we've been in 2020.
Yeah, it has been.
Where's my screen now that I need to type the info? Okay, I'm gonna stop this and start it afresh. I don't know what it's doing.
You are recording already?
Yeah, I'm recording already, but I was going live, but for some reason it's not going there because it needs to give me an option to put information. So you still remember the last session, because we might refer to some of the stuff from last time.
Yes.
It's a pity.
Are you now live?
It's setting up. It says it's setting up.
Because from my side, it's showing that the meeting is now live on Facebook.
Oh yeah, it's live now. I hope my network is behaving. The funny thing is that on Facebook it says it's live, but on my site it says it's waiting to go live. Okay, I'm going to start it afresh. Oh, Lesego, are you here? Tell me what you're seeing on Facebook. Is it there live?
Let me check. Are you now live? Yes, it shows that.
Okay. So I guess my phone is too slow to pick up. They're live.
Check.
Because I want to get the link.
Yes, it shows that.
So we can share. guess my phone is too slow to pick up. If someone has the Facebook volume, that site. Huh?
I open it and then it shows that we are live.
Oh, okay. So that means we are live. Let's see, let's test, let's all talk. Last time we had an issue of an echo. So let's just all talk and see if we are fine. Or you are all not on muteness, so I guess we are fine.
Sounds like it. No, but there's an echo. Let's hear.
Dr. P?
I'm muted.
Okay.
Should I?
hear you now?
I don't hear the echo from my side. Do you hear it?
No, it's fine now.
Okay. Well, let's keep that. I'm trying to get the link because I want to share the link on the personal page because some people will go from the personal page side. Liseko. Anyway, we'll use this as time also of waiting for people to join.
Okay, no, it shows us.
Okay.
And that's why you're getting the echo. So
waiting for people to join.
That's from.
Oh, okay. Okay, anyone able to get the link? Oh, Lisiko has shared the link on
your Facebook page.
yes, in the group.
Great. It does take us here.
Oh, Lisiko has shared the link on just for a few seconds to allow people to join us. And then we should be, then we can get going. I'm just sharing on my status. So whoever needs a link, they can go on my status, WhatsApp status. Can find it there.
Mm.
Okay, you can tell me if you all got the link you are able to share.
Is it a new link? Is it the same as the old one? It's the same, eh?
Which one is the old one? The
I
new link will take you directly to the conversation. The old one just takes you to the page.
Okay.
Mm.
So you want the one that will take them directly to the conversation. Okay, let's get started. I see Lisiko here is done with his meeting, so he'll sort out the watch parties and all the other stuff. Okay, let's get started. I think we are ready. I see there's some few people who have joined us already. It's 12 minutes past, so welcome to my panelists and welcome to everybody from the Facebook side. We are continuing where we left off last time. So we were having a conversation last time about or sharing our experiences as women, how we navigate our spaces in the boardroom, our personal lives, our careers, our social life, and everything that we need to navigate to be able to make it or to live a fulfilling life as women. Last time we had men as well joining us, so some of the things, as much as we keep on referring to women, because our objective is to try to encourage women and support women and make them feel that they can make it wherever they are. But some of the things are applicable, whether you are a man or a woman. So yeah, so don't switch off when you hear us keep on saying women. You are also welcome. We love to have you here as well, even if you are not women. So I'll welcome my panelists. I'll let them introduce themselves. Who's going to start? Dr. P, you on top of my screen, so you can get started.
Good evening, Dr. J, and good evening, Phindile. Good evening to friends on Facebook. I'm Pheladi Mohlala, currently the capacity manager at SASO, and with 19 years of experience in academic and industry. And also the passion that I have is mostly with mentoring women and women in STEM particularly. And yeah, a very enthusiastic social innovist, and now currently like in sustainability and climate change, I'm also part of one of the passions that I have just discovered as well. So thank you, Dr. J.
Okay, thank you, Dr. P. Sis P.
Hi everyone, Facebook, everyone that's just logged in, good evening. My name is Phindile Mthethwa. I think I am. That's what they say. I think, therefore I am. I'm an enterprise development specialist. I am passionate about small business development, small business mentorship. I also work in communities, you know, disadvantaged communities are my strong passion, but I'm also passionate about women issues and issues that affect the disadvantaged, essentially Black and women issues. So these kinds of discussions really interest me a lot.
Thank you, Sis P, and welcome again, and welcome everybody from Facebook. So if you are joining us from the Facebook side, just drop us a message, say who you are, where you are joining us from, and we will now and then look at the comments from Facebook, and any questions that you have, drop them on the Facebook site as well. Welcome to Lesego. I hope you are with us, Lesego. I see you there, but I don't see you. So I hope you are with us. If you can share also on the personal page, because I think some of the people don't have the link to the business page. So let's start where we left off last time. So when we wrapped up last time, just to kind of like take with us the guys maybe who did not join us last time. So we were talking last time about culture, about expectations as women, about finding ourselves and how that has helped us in our journey and made our lives a bit more fulfilling and a bit more exciting. And when we wrapped up, we spoke about the two things that you will tell the younger you. Queen, unfortunately, couldn't join us today. Yeah, the responsibilities, I think that's the balancing that is happening of being a CFO. So she had an urgent meeting to go to. But last time, one of the things that she shared when we were wrapping up was that life is not fair. and we have to accept that because you can't change it and make peace with it. And she said, focus on what you've got control of and play in that sphere of control than trying to control things that you can't control. And then we had Sis P. Sis P, do you still remember what you told the younger you?
Yes, I think I still remember because it was quoted to me later, you know, just the sun will shine again tomorrow.
Okay. And you said wherever you go, you belong. Leave a mark, don't doubt yourself, and don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by the spaces that you are in. Dr. P, do you still remember what you told the younger you?
I still remember. I think one of the things that really is something that I identify with is that the younger me, what I would have said to you matter. And I think from that point of view, in terms of who you are, getting that validation that you do matter in this space, that's something that really I would have told my younger self.
Okay. So I made notes, and also you said nurture the passion that you have, and don't try to be everything and everything that you are not. Be yourself and nurture your passion than what the community or other people expect from you. So those were the key things that we ended with last time. And there was a burning issue about being humble. Let's start there. Let's kind of like explore a bit. What does humble mean as a woman to you? And how have you find it kind of like unfolding in the different spaces that you have been in? When people say be humble, what do they expect from you? So let's talk a bit. What does humble mean to you as a woman, and how has it showed up, or how has it affected how you show up in different spaces? Sis P.
Dr. J, my take on humility is that humility has been projected in the negative sense, particularly in the case of women. Whenever people say be humble, it always inadvertently means you have to withhold your opinion on issues. You mustn't voice what you think on a particular subject. It sometimes means you shouldn't act on what you believe should be done at that particular time. Mm. It also means you shouldn't tell people of your achievements, or you shouldn't tell people of what you've done. And so it's something that is inculcated in us when we grow up. You know, especially if you're a woman, you know, you must always be humble. You must always be subservient. It's one of the things that is expected of you, to be subservient and accept everything that you are being told, or accept everything that is put before you. So that is my experience of what society thinks humility is.
Okay, and how have you navigated those expectations that the community expected from you when they say be humble? So how have you managed that and still made it as a career woman and a mother and all that?
The one thing that I can tell you, Dr. J, is that humility is elusive. Someone said, when you say you are humble, that's when you are not humble. You get what I mean? The minute you say, I am humble, no one who's humble sees themselves as being humble. And so I have always sought to be myself. I've always sought to be myself and to live the best values that I have been taught and the best values that I've acquired as I grow in life. Because some of the values you get taught at home, others at church, others in society, and others at work, but I have sought to live the best that I could, influenced by whatever I'm involved in, you know. So I have always spoken my mind, respectfully. But there are very few people who will tell you I was rude to them. I will always speak my mind, but I will speak it truthfully. I will speak my mind the best way I can with due respect, and really due respect. They say when you say due respect, so, but you know, I will accord everyone the respect that they deserve. I also respect authority. I'm not one not to respect authority, but respecting authority has got nothing to do with me not voicing my opinion.
Okay, let's hear from Dr. P. How has humility molded you or changed your life or made you a better person?
Thank you, Dr. J. I think one of the things that, for example, when we say being humble, sometimes is for example, is something that we want you to actually show yourself at the lower estimate of your importance. So for whatever that you have actually achieved, sometimes when we say people are humble, is when we want you to show up at the lower level. Like we don't want you to show up to people as who you are or what you have achieved. So the expectation when they say the person is humble is that because we come and show ourselves as our lower estimate. And how has that maybe helped me in terms of being a profession? One of the things that I can say is that becoming a professional is more than just occupying a role, and it acquires a lot of skills, and one have to adapt to different requirements for that particular role. And one important thing is that it involves like a fundamental identity shift when you become a leader in your role. So then it becomes a clash in terms of what is it that, how should we show up in society or in other people or at work so that you can get termed that you are humble. But there is one quote that I really loved, and it was also in my office, which was by Marian Williamson, like it's about our deepest fear. And then I just want to just quote it to show you like how did this change my perception or perspective on being humble. That our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frighten us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? And then our playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are meant to manifest the glory of God, which is in all of us. And when I let my light shine, I give the other person a permission to let their light shine. So this quote I didn't read it verbatim, but what it meant for me in terms of being humble is that if I come and show myself up as my lower self in terms of who am I, then I'm not actually doing justice to community or to the people around me, because my playing small doesn't serve them in terms of actually making my light shine, so that I give them a permission to also shine their own light. So when I come and show up most of the time as being humble, it's like I felt that I'm dimming each other people's lights as well, to say, you shouldn't show up with your light. Like I'm making sure that I'm diminishing each person's light. So when I look at it from that point of view, it changed the whole perspective of actually being humbled. It's more of making sure that you really shine your light, so that you allow the other person to also shine their light as well. And from that perspective, then we grow each other as people, and we want to always develop. And in that way, we actually serving the world in a better way than being humble. So for me, that's where there was the contradiction of the humbleness as a professional person. And then at home as well, I think one of the things that also clashed was that our culture, the way it is set up, I am a baby by culture. Like, you are not supposed to speak towards the elders. Like, you have to listen and given permission to speak. And in that way, it robs you of actually voicing out what your opinion is with other issues, which Phindile has actually indicated. And in that way, like, we actually limit ourselves from solving some of the problems that we could actually solve, which sometimes, like, as women, you are not supposed to talk about in a certain environment. So for me, being humble, sometimes I think we misinterpret it in terms of how you should show up and when you show up, whether at home or in the professional world. So those kind of contradictions, we need to actually align and try to find common grounds of saying, like, how do we actually make sure that we really serve the world that we are living in at our best, without somebody else feeling insecure about your best, because we each have a purpose that we need to fulfill, and we need to fulfill it completely. And we cannot maybe use a certain word to actually try and dim other people's light in terms of saying, no, you are, like, for example, showing up, you're showing off, those kind of words. Not to say that you need to be arrogant as a person. I think that's the difference. Sometimes you show up in an arrogant way of what you have achieved. That is not saving the world in a better place. But when you show up your best, then I think that's one of the things that we need to actually line up. Like, how does your best look like to other people?
Okay.
You know, I'm quite happy that you're raising these issues, Dr. P. I'm always fascinated by a certain group of words that are used towards women who speak up for themselves. I notice the word arrogant that is used when we talk to women who speak up for themselves, when we talk about women who show up. And humility is always a term that is appropriated to women. You know, it would seem that the people who are generally supposed to be humble are women. You know, you never hear people saying, Mara, Mr. So-and-so needs to humble himself. I must still hear of that, you know, and especially in the professional field or in the corporate sector. And that actually always worries me, that whenever a woman shows up, whenever a woman speaks up, even us women, we look at that woman as arrogant, whereas your male counterpart, who would probably be saying the very same things that you are saying as a woman, is seen to be assertive, to be outspoken. Women are not outspoken, women are arrogant.
Yeah. They are bossy. That's another word that is popularly used in the corporate space. that you are bossy. But you will hardly hear it referred to men that a man is bossy. And because we are trying, most of the time we've got this quest of complying or of being accepted in a certain way. Sometimes then we lose ourselves or our assertiveness, and then we just let things go because we don't want to be labeled bossy. We don't want to be labeled cheeky. You don't want to be told you are not humble and all those things. And in our last time when we had the session, I said that I'm anti this word. And the truth of the matter is that in the true meaning of it, it was not supposed to be used negatively or being a negative word, but it has become a negative word because of how it's been used in our societies. You know, it takes me back to remember the first time I went for an interview for a job. It was with an agent. And the feedback that I got after that, because that lady was honest, and the feedback that I got was that you are not assertive. You don't seem somebody who's gonna go and get things done. You seem too, I can't remember, there was a word she used. And my confidence was affected so much after that, that even the next interview and the next interview, that was in my head that I'm not assertive. But I had a struggle in my head because I come from an environment where I was told I need to be humble. And how I showed up in the interview was humble. And then the people who were interviewing me interpreted that as not being assertive. You are not going to be able to do a job at this level because you are not assertive. So you find a lot of contradictions with what we are told we must be and what is actually expected out there for us to move from one level to the other. So how have you managed those contradictions? You grow up being told be humble. You get at work, you've got people who report to you. You cannot be humble about people not delivering and all that. You need to get the job done. You go to an interview, as I made an example now, you can't get to an interview and be humble. You need to go there and show your competence, your skills, your assertiveness. So how have you navigated those contradictions? Humble, assertive, bossy, you know, achieve things. And how have you managed those? Because it's two things that tends to run in your head and you find yourself not being able to decide where to go. Humble is sitting there. I need to get the job done. I need to be assertive. How have you managed that? I know, Sis P, you've been in a management level with people reporting to you. Were you humble? Were you assertive? And how did you manage that?
I'm quite clear, Dr. J, about what humility is. Humility is not looking down on anybody because of certain attributes that they have. And so once I understood that, you know, and I'm able to put everyone in a position or in an equal position, I do not have a problem relating with them in whatever capacity. Mm. So once people know that I treat them as an equal, I'm able to have a conversation with them. So for example, you come into a workplace, you are new, they don't know you from a bar of soap, you know, it's easy to come in and bulldoze the environment. Mm. Or you can come in and say, you know, you guys have been doing this for a long time, you probably know what you are doing, but I think we can work well together, we need to cooperate, and you know, you bring the team along. And I don't know whether that amounts to humility, but this is how I've managed team dynamics, where you bring the whole team along and they know that in dealing with you, they will be treated fairly. You know, and I think humility has got to do with fairness. And I want to say, perhaps the problem is that we want humility to stand out on its own instead of bringing in a set of values. You know, it is a set of values that supports one another. It is respect, it is honesty, it is fairness, you know, and then that probably then makes you a humble person. But you can't just be humble out of nowhere. That makes you walk over, straight walk over. Everybody goes over your head, you know. And so once you are able to relate to people at that level where they feel that you will treat them fairly, you will be honest with them, will be forthright with them, and you are then able to say, these are the requirements. These are the requirements of a job. You have to act in this manner. I require certain targets to be met. The organization requires these things to be done, you know, and also allow people to speak out, you know, as much as you want people to say something, allow them to also speak out and voice their opinion. And tell you their discomforts about the requirements. You know, sometimes people tell you that they're uncomfortable carrying out a certain task, not because they're not going to carry it out, but they just wanted to voice it, and you say, okay, how do we help you carry that task out? You know, because I can see you have a certain a certain disposition towards that particular task. So that is my take on humility, that if I'm a boss, let me take my team along, and it shouldn't be difficult then to get them to cooperate with me.
Okay. Dr. P?
From my side, I think, for example, as you just mentioned, Dr. J, that the way we grew up, so we are all, for example, a product of a culture in which we grew up. And this is either bad or good, depending on the organization that we are working for, and the culture that you find within the organization. And most of the things are basically like a component of just being a human being. And one of the things that I think we have missed the opportunity of in a very, very long time, while, for example, currently in business, they're talking about diversity and inclusion. I think that is an opportunity that we have missed a long time ago, where we can actually learn to deal with differences in cultures and people. So in a professional realm, one of the culture that dominates there is the Western culture. And the Western culture says that it believes to be in a certain and unchanging order, which means like things are independent of each other. So whatever that you do is not connected to you. But while in an African way, everything is connected. Who you show up as a boss and how you do your work and the relationships that you have with other people, everything is connected. While in the Western culture, like they are all disconnected. So what I do as a person and what I do as a boss is different, and it is seen in that light. So the disconnect, or for example, the problem was, how do I decouple the way I grew up, the culture that I grew up in, when I show up in a corporate environment where, for example, the culture that dominates business is mostly like the Western culture. How do I learn this culture so that I decouple it? When I come to you being assertive as a manager, you can also see it that it's not about you, it's about the job. So it's not about, for example, you as a person, is about the work that you do. But for example, if you're talking to a different person that grew up in a certain culture, it's very difficult to disconnect that. Then we take things emotionally. Sometimes we might actually say, for example, you will be so surprised that our male counterparts, they can get into a meeting get heated into the meeting, like to the point that they can actually strangle each other for that matter. But when they go out of the meeting, it's like nothing happened. And most of us women, then what we do, our eyes become so bold. And especially for us Africans, then we wonder like, what was happening in there and what is happening now? We can't decouple the two, because our culture, like whatever happens in there, we expected it to actually calculate outside of that. So in that way, for example, what I had to learn was to learn the two cultures, like for example, where they clash and where they complement each other, and then where there is opportunity for us to learn about each other. And I think as leaders, one of the things that we can actually take currently and moving forward in terms of diversity, which is brought about by our different cultures that we grew up, and the inclusion, which talks about actually taking intended effort to learn about other people's culture and how they show up at work and what it means to them. So I'll give you an example that when I started as a profession, one of the things that I really missed a lot of opportunity was I didn't know how to be assertive. I can go to assertive courses and try to understand how do I show up as an assertive person. And one of the things that I lost was that while I was reporting under a male counterpart, it was really difficult for me to decouple some of the things that I have learned within my culture, that when a man talks to you or when they say you cannot actually object, and when that person is even older than you, it's really even difficult to actually object in other things. So you get to a point where like, you're just like, yes, sir. And then that doesn't do you good, because you don't show up as you most of the time. You want to please that person. And then once you actually develop those skills of saying, let me decouple, now I can understand that this is how they are supposed to show up as my boss. And this is how, for example, my culture is actually maybe in some way crippling me to show up as this. And then there is a clash of actually being assertive and making sure that I deliver. And I know that I can deliver, but the way that deliverance was actually covered was really wrong. And immediately when you step into your own self, I think the quote that I've said, it says that I felt like I was dimming my light. Then immediately when I say like, I need to be myself, I need to just be me, talk the truth and say it. Whether that truth is going to, for example, sometimes in corporate, they say some of the things you don't say because they can limit your careers. But I got to that point of saying like, I'm in a better position when I show up in myself, and whatever I benefit along the way, at least when I benefit it as myself, I'll really be fulfilled. And then from that point, then you actually like, you find yourself being assertive, and some other things you can actually, question them back and actually like make sure that you question things that are saying. And in that way, they can see that now you're grown, you're talking the language that business is talking, but it takes an intended effort, like efforts that, for example, you have to put in as yourself. And I think a lot of us women, that we take too long. I think for me, I took too long to get to that stage. And then sometimes it actually cripples us. Sometimes that is why hence business, sometimes you say like, we don't have women leaders, because we take too long to step into our truth and make sure that we align with the business culture, which, for example, it can clash with our own culture that we grew up with. So to understand both and make sure that we decouple them when necessary, that's where, for example, I had to learn. That's the place where it was like a huge learning curve for me.
Okay. We've got some questions here. I'll go back to Facebook. Welcome everybody, those who joined us a bit late, welcome. We are in the middle of our conversation talking about culture issues, how culture can sometimes be a stumbling block or a hindrance for women to progress, especially in their careers as executives, as managers, and those kind of things that require us to not be humble, but requires us to be assertive and lead and show our management skill. So there's a question here that says, how does culture influence how society look at women, and how can this be changed? Who wants to take it?
You know, culture has been demonized. Culture has been demonized. We've got an absolutely beautiful culture that says we need to espouse others more than we espouse ourselves, or as much as we espouse ourselves. That says you need to be considerate of others. A culture that says, you know, you need to love other people, you need to take care of other people. But people have demonized the issue of culture. And culture now seems to be a stumbling block. You know, everyone then says, my culture does not allow you as a woman to do this. My culture does not allow me to do this. It's got nothing to do with culture. People are just abusing the word culture. In my mind, you know, I bring my culture into my space, and I respect your culture. I'm almost always fascinated by your Muslims, your Jews. You know, when they come into the space, into the workspace, they change nothing about themselves. And I am also fascinated that the new breed of books that is coming out is saying the Western culture is not the culture. And people are now looking at gurus, you know, these Indian gurus for advice. And it seems, Tina, as Africans, we're not coming back to say, what are we taking out of Africa into the workspace? Therefore, we have, as professionals, a task to bring Africanism into the workspace. And I'm glad that it's starting with small things like the way we wear our hair. You know, we are no longer pressured to wear our hair a certain way so that certain people are appeased. And so, you know, we now need to infuse certain things about our culture that make us better people. For example, you know that you are old when you start getting into the workspace, people that are your children's age. And I got to that point where people were joining, you know, were my children's ages. And then they would say to me, a Phindile, and I'd say to them, no way, now you're an African child. You can call all these white people by their names, but you are going to call me Mampi. Because you are an African child, and an African child has been taught to address older people in a certain way. And for that reason, you know, the boardroom would then address me as Mampi, not because bayangugisa, but because the African culture says a person of my age should be addressed in a certain way. Not because also I want to impose my seniority on anyone. When the time for debate comes, Mampi, they need to voice their opinions and say, Mampi, you are not correct. Whatever you are saying is not correct. We do not agree with you. So if we then bring in those things, I remember when I started working, I worked in a black branch of Standard Bank in the township. So we were all black. I kid you not. The elders were called Babu Mloi, Babu Mapisa. The others were called Pujabu, Sis Rose, Sis Togo, you know. But that did not mean our Sis Togo are not going to do their work. We're all there to earn our income and to do, and if I happened to be Sis Togo's supervisor, Sis Togo would listen to me when I say, Sis Togo, ngicela uhambe uyolanda cash laphaya wherever, you know. So, but those are the small things about our culture that make us different. Now, we don't call people and say, hey, George, I'm dalag now. You know, so I'm saying culture should be used positively instead of us seeing culture as being depressant or oppressive.
I'm laughing because I've got a different view from what you are saying when we are at work. Because why I've got a different view, we can hear also maybe others from Facebook what they think is that there are certain things that subconsciously happen when you call people in certain ways. When the minute I start calling somebody Ubabuz Banban, and that person is my subordinate, and Ubabuz Banban is not performing, subconsciously, because from where I come from, I cannot challenge Ubaba just by phrasing that. I cannot challenge Ubaba and call him to order because he's not performing. It becomes so difficult that others can share their experiences. I've had that experience when I was running my business, where I had people that were kind of like oldish to me, and I called them Oputi and all that. And when they were not performing, I struggled in my head to call a spade, because then the subconsciously that thing is still sitting at the back of my mind, that you can't question an adult, you cannot challenge an adult, you cannot call an adult to order, you are a child. And then I found myself struggling with that. And that brought in a weakness as a manager, that I couldn't manage properly some of my subordinates because they were Oputus Bani, no Tatus Ban. And I had that, it was a battle within me to say, how do I tell Ubabuz Bani as to what is happening? But I would like to hear what are other people's experiences as well. Do you find it easier when you already referring to somebody using something that suggests he's senior, and then now you have to call that person to order because he's not performing? It will be interesting. I don't know, Dr. P, whether you've had that experience.
Well, I've never had that experience, but I can imagine that it will actually clash with some of the information that I have subconsciously when I have to call someone like Ausi so-and-so or Awuti so-and-so. And as it will literally require a lot of energy from myself to step and have like self-talk with myself to step into that space. It won't come naturally. If, for example, I were to use that phrase of like Ausi so and so, but if I remove those, for example, titles, I think there are those places where we can actually call you like Ausi or Awudi so and so at workplace. But when you come to work things, I think you can use it strategically in terms of actually making sure that when you say that first, because when you are about to actually make sure that you reprimand somebody, when you start from that phase, it can be used powerfully, because when you say, I'll see so and so, already you are determining the level of tone that you want both of you to be, which means like, is that I come to you with respect. That's the first line that I'm showing up with you when I come and say, I was Phindile. And then from that point, then I will be using it strategically from my side, because it comes the conversation to a point where the recipient also will look at it objectively, other than maybe with disrespect. So it is a catch-22 situation where it can be a block for me, or it can be like a very powerful tool as well for me to use in terms of making sure that the playing fields are those that, for example, whether reprimanding respectfully or not. But I guess that's where, for example, you have to have that power conversation with yourself in terms of what are the intended consequences that I want this conversation to have. And then from that point of view, I think you can choose how to use it.
Okay. Yes,
Dr.
P, I
J,
see you want to say something, yes?
Dr. J and Dr. P, you know, and to the audience as well, the one thing that has always bothered me is how our men are minimized in their workplaces. Umefika la ekhaya ubaba, kintate when he walks in here, when he gets to work, he has to be at the back of a truck. He has to be called by all sorts of names. He must be told he's lazy. John, you're lazy, and I think it becomes a breath of fresh air when you come in as a senior to other Black people, for example, and you address them and say Puti, Baba, and you know, I have found it a powerful tool, as Dr. P says, in getting people to work with you. It works amazingly, even when you get to discipline them, because it's easy to have conversations with people at that level or like that. So I'm able to say, wait again, there's a lady I worked with, Begas Teleliti, Mamani. I don't know why I called her Mama. I thought, oh, she sounds like a Mamman. She looks like a Mamman. And everyone ended up calling her Mamani. But I said, Mamani, I want to clean a hand. Mamani, you didn't do this well. Or Ausi, if you're talking to others, you know, what doing other types of work, I'm not happy with your performance, you know. And so it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be used, it shouldn't be a stumbling block for you, Dr. J, you know. And I'm sorry that your experience is such that once you had given them that kind of label, it then meant you can't raise your voice on them, you can't tell them these are the types of performances you want out of them, and get the required performance. So I'm really sorry that that was your experience. But my experience has been that when people have found a workplace where they feel respected, it is easier for them to then reciprocate.
Yeah. Thank you to that, P. It also depends on the kind of people you're dealing with. So there's a lot of dynamics there. There's a question here. It says, to Dr. P's point, what opportunities can be explored in work areas that allow women not to be dictated by social norms and culture? Before we get to that, I just want to read Sfiso Samuel Matsane's opinion on this, Buti and Baba. Say, I think it doesn't matter how we address each other in the corporate world, as long as we all understand and do things with respect. I think that's a good point. Okay, so let's get back to the questions. What opportunities can be explored in work areas that allow women not to be dictated by social norms and culture? Who wants to take first, Dr. P?
From my side, I think one of the opportunities that we haven't explored that well is the opportunities of actually embracing who we are and where we come from, being our authentic self. I think one of the things that maybe the corporate world has tried in so many years, and then unfortunately, in some cases, we find ourselves where we are, is the fact that, for example, there has been like a box that when you're in corporate, you have to fill a certain box. And we didn't actually allow people to be themselves, to be who they are, and embrace where they come from. I remember one of the things I think society has actually dictated was that we looked upon people coming from rural areas and different provinces. There are some provinces which have been seen as superior. When you come from there, you are like the prestige type of a person. And there are provinces when you come from, you're already being looked at. You start from low from that. And one of the things is that I come from one of those provinces where I felt it was never given the respect it deserved from Limpopo and other people that come from maybe the rural area of the Eastern Cape or something. So then the society already class you to a certain level to where, for example, as a woman, you really work triple harder than anyone to actually deserve that seat on the table. I felt that I had to actually work a lot more harder. Firstly, you have to make sure that you jump, or for example, you overcome the barrier of where you come from, that the society already has put in there. You overcome the barrier of being a woman, and sometimes a barrier, a racial barrier of being a Black person. And that was huge because it means like a lot of times you really have to work hard for certain things to really be noticed. And then that, I think, society is something that it can start, for example, peeling those layers out and see the person for who they are, not where they come from, or like how they show up as women, but looking into authentic people, like looking into their native geniuses, because I feel that each and every person, when they show up by themselves, you learn a lot about them. You really enjoy their company. And I think one of the things that I literally make an effort into when I encounter different people in my life is to try to understand, who are you? Not what the society has painted you are, but who are you? Do you really know who are you? Do you embrace yourself? Do you actually talk positive things about where you come from and who you are? Do you embrace? Because all those things is what molded you to be who you are. And when I come across people who don't really appreciate where they come from or who they really are, and they look down on the societies they come from, then I have a problem in terms of like, how are you going to actually add value in this world if the first thing, you are not showing up as who you really are, but what the society says you are. So I think we have lost a lot of opportunities in that regard, and the society can start by embracing people and removing the labels that we have put in upon ourselves in terms of where we come from and in terms of how we show up, and try to go to the level of saying, for example, is this person authentic? They are living their truth. It's such a fresh air when you actually meet somebody that they are themselves 100%. You love their company because you know they're living their life to the fullest of their potential. Thanks.
It's quite interesting, the issue of where you come from. It's not only that, it's also the schools you went to, you know, the accent.
Yeah.
Those who don't have the right accent, you know, don't seem to be recognized. And I saw it in a company like Investec. At Investec, if you have the right accent, went to the right private school, it's easy for you to get a job there. And if you went to the right university, you know, because there are apparently wrong universities like South Africa. So, so those are the issues that are a holdback. But to answer the question of what are the opportunities that one should pursue, my sense is that when you are in the corporate world, don't hold back. Don't hold back. if there's an opportunity to join a committee, if there's a committee that is doing this, get in there. If there's an event and they want people to assist with that event, go in there. If there's a project, you know, don't wait to be invited. Find out why, how you can join a group that is doing or is participating in a particular project, you know. Let yourself on, but don't let an opportunity pass you by if uyayikhalela. You know, if you feel, you know, this is something that I would really like to do. If you would like to sit on the EE forum, sit on that forum. If you want to sit on some forum, find out how one becomes a member of that forum. If you hear about something that is interesting, you know, take the initiative. One of the companies I worked for was very unfriendly, very unfriendly. And the only way to navigate was to let yourself onto things. If you didn't, you really sat there and you could just be forgotten. So it was up to you to walk up to people. It was up to you to approach people, even by email, you know, and even mentorship, you know. Find someone powerful in the organization to mentor you. You'd be surprised. Some of them have never been asked to mentor someone. And suddenly he feels like, hey, yeah, you know, I'm mentoring someone, I'm mentoring Jabu, you know. So people must take advantage of those opportunities. You know, if there's something that comes up, get onto it. One of my bosses said, if you find yourself in a wrong meeting, don't leave that meeting. Even if you find that they're talking way above your head, just sit there as if you understand everything, you know, fake it until you make it. And these are the things we don't teach our children, you know, that whatever opportunities, don't wait for them to come your way, go seek them out, yeah, and use them.
Yeah, I like that, Sis-P, because one of the things you learn very quick when you incorporate, especially if you're ambitious, is that you are not going to move up the ladder by just your competence. It's that equation, it does not have only competence in it and does not have qualification only in it. It's got a lot of other factors in there. And the sooner you learn the game, the sooner you're going to start moving up. And as you're mentioning the issue of mentorship, mentorship is one of the things that can open doors for you if you choose the mentor right, especially career-wise. So if you are in a spaces where you know somebody in your company is listened to like nobody else's business, go to that person and ask that person to mentor you and start sharing your dreams with that person. That person will help you open those doors because that person sits in those boardrooms where the things are discussed to say who's gonna move in that position and who's gonna move in that position. But if you've got nobody talking for you in corporate, it's hard, eh? It's hard. You're going to complain with your friends, you're going to get all the qualifications, you're going to do everything, and you'll keep on asking yourself, why am I not moving up? You need to learn the game, and mentorship is one of the things that I found that works. If you want to be a professor, find a professor who's listened to mentor you. If you want to be a CEO or somewhere close to the CEO, find a CEO or somebody who's key in the company who's listened to, and get that person to mentor you. And when that person mentors you, don't sit and fold your arms and tell him, I want to be this and this and this, and think it's just going to happen. You still have to do your part, but that person will help with opening the doors where you will be able to go and present your case. So learn the game, and I find, I know sometimes we use race and people want us to talk like there's no race, I find that white people have mastered this game. And if you don't learn from them, even if you have to get a white person to be your mentor, if that is the key person in that organization, get that person to be your mentor, learn how they play the game, and just learn the game. And you will be surprised that what will have taken you 20 years might take you 10 years. And not because you were not competent enough or what, but because you just know how to play the game and you know the right people to talk to help you to get there. You are not going to get there alone, trust me. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because I think sometimes we too closed and live solo, and we want to make it solo so that maybe tomorrow we can claim that I made it. I'm a, what do you call it, self-made man. Exactly. You know, so you're not gonna make it solo. It's harder to do it solo. You need other people to support you and help you get there, and take up all the opportunities that you have. If you're in an organization and then there's committee of this, there's committee of that, and they're not gonna pay you extra for it, and you don't take it up and you think your salary is just gonna increase, forget it. You first take those things that are pro bono to get the skills, to understand things, so that you can be able to take those that are going to pay you. So if you start being too selective very early, you might not get there. So the committees that CSP is talking about, just throw yourself in there. But just don't throw yourself there and sit and do nothing. Throw yourself in there and show them you can do it and add value. Okay, I'm looking at our time. It's 1:15 now. Let me, there was a comment from Pumello Makua. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So he was also talking on the same issue, that really the main important is respect and getting the job done than what we call people. So yeah, so really the main, yes.
Dr. J, just on that, I think what it wasn't so much what you call people that I wanted to emphasize. I wanted to emphasize bringing in Africanism into the workplace. And that was the quickest example I could think of. Yeah. So people can find other things that we do as Africans that make us better people to bring into the workplace and make a workplace ibemnandi and acceptable and livable. We spend a lot of hours in the office for us to be unhappy there.
Yep. That's true. Yeah, I like that because as much as the example was about calling people, there's a lot of other things that we can bring in. And I've seen also in research, people are starting to say, let's come up with theories that are founded or are based on African context. Because we try to adapt all this or adopt all these Western models and theories and all that, and sometimes they don't fit our context. And I've seen it a lot also in the coaching space, where people saying, let's come up with African models to coach African people, because the Western ones, they're not really 100% aware of our circumstances. So at least there's a move of people saying, let's look at, they normally say what, African problems, African solutions for African problems. So at least there's that move that starts saying, there's something in Africa. Africa is not all bad, that we have to go and export everything else somewhere. But it's just us to start saying to ourselves, there is something. And the minute we acknowledge there is something, then we will start looking within. And when we start looking within, then we're going to start finding important things that we can use in our societies. So that is important. I like that, Siski. I know we ended up being too emphatic on the Uputino Baba, but because
Okay.
we get the we get the message that there is something in Africa that we can use that is good in our culture. And also, let's not abuse the culture when we want to do things. Let's take the good things and use them also in our corporate environment. And in the boardroom, I know CSP, last time there were some of the things you wanted to share from the boardroom side in terms of women, how we navigate. What are the challenges that women can look out for in the boardroom and how to navigate them?
The first thing that I have to be overt about is the fact that boardrooms are not ready for Black women. Boardrooms are just not ready for Black women. And so it is incumbent upon anyone who sits in that boardroom to represent. When you go into that boardroom, make sure you have done your homework. You will not know everything. You will not know everything, but show enthusiasm, number one. Number two, show that you have done your homework. Another thing that women need to do when they get into those boardrooms, don't talk for the sake of talking. But whenever you talk, yenza sure you just hit it on the nail. Make an impression every time. Make sure that you bring up valid issues. Make your issues very valid and carry yourself in the most professional manner so that we open the way for other women, for other Black women to be accepted. It is a problem when boards do not want to employ Black women because the one that they employed did not add value.
Yeah.
You know, and so we have the task, we have the burden. It actually is a burden because other people and maybe other races come into the boardroom, they're already spoken for. So there is no expectation, you know. But for a Black woman, or even a Black person, even a Black male, when you come in, it is expected that you will be irrelevant, you will not add value to the board, but make sure that at least you do your homework, read the board packs. You know, a friend of
Don't
mine.
open them in the session.
No, a friend of mine who works for another government department and has a huge position there, and sometimes goes to portfolio committee meetings, says her biggest gripe is how some portfolio committee members come there and they don't have a notebook, they don't have a pen. It was during those times, obviously, of a pen and a notebook.
Yeah.
And they sleep through the meeting. They are disengaged, and members of other races and sometimes inadvertently other political parties would have read, would have made marks on the pack, you know, they've made marks on the pack, and you can tell what people are engaged. So the one thing I would advise people in executive positions, in board, now I'm getting I'm getting my own Facebook back. But it's something that I would advise executives and board people, Uguti, be engaged. Don't get out of the meeting not having said anything valid and that adds value to any of the processes.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. I used to hear people saying, you get to the board meeting, you are all there in the morning, everybody's carrying their packs, they are still closed as they are. They sit there, then they start opening them. And then how do you expect to have a fruitful meeting? And then those who have read then becomes the decision makers, because then they know what is in, they can make a convincing argument. And then we complain about the decisions that have been made after that, but we don't pull our weight and make sure that we read. There's nothing as bad as a lazy person who wants to be in a committee, a subcommittee or whatever, but does not want to do the work. I always say, you know, with this BEE and EE and all these things, as we were saying, Sis P, that it's kind of like a burden. The one thing that I always say is that don't make EEE candidates who are coming after you's life difficult or impossible because you sat there and then you were lazy. Because remember, you are not just representing yourself, because your starting point as a Black person or as a Black woman is that you are incompetent. You are there because you are Black to make up the EE points or whatever the points are. And then if you get them, then you prove them right. And then the narrative continues. Whoever comes is an EE candidate, is incompetent, doesn't have the qualifications to be here. He was just sent here because he's Black. And then now the sad thing becomes that even the one that comes now to add value is never listened to, because what? You set the standard to say, we as Black people, we are incompetent, we don't read board packs, we don't do research, we just come to a meeting empty just because we are Black. It can't be. We have to be competent and do the hard work, even harder than the other people, because our starting point is a negative. So you have to move yourself to zero before you go anywhere. Other people's starting point is a positive, but ours tends to be negative, and you cannot afford to be incompetent.
You can't, Dr. J. And I think that that's one of the things that we need to accept, that as trendsetters, or for example, as the ones that are going to change this narrative, it's a huge burden, Sis P, in terms of that there is a huge, for example, cap that we need to actually make sure that we flatten in terms of expectations of what a Black lady who is the leader in an executive position supposed to do. And when you have the opportunity, everything that you have already spoken about, that you give yourself those, you put yourself in those positions of opportunities, whether it's in a committee, and you work harder without any expectations. And unfortunately, some of us, for example, we will always say, for example, I'm not getting paid to do that. Why should I do extra? In this day and age, to really make it, you have to remove the whole concept of working from 8 to 5 or 8 to 4. It doesn't work. You need to actually go extra harder for you to be recognized. And then qualifications, as you have just mentioned, Dr. J, like they get you to the door, but there's a lot of things, attributes that you really need to pick up in some of this pro bono kind of work that will actually get you very further. And then everybody now can get qualification. We are not in that era where we'll say like, oh, I'm the only Black person in my family who has a degree. If that is still the case, then there's a problem in that society. There shouldn't be anymore. Everybody can get a qualification, but what you do extra in terms of who you are, that's what is going to differentiate you. And now is an opportunity for us to change the narrative that we can actually work better as Africans.
Yep. We cannot emphasize that more. We're all passionate about that point, because we have seen how those people who are the first ones in things disadvantages those who are coming after them. So don't be that EE or BEE that's going to make other people's life difficult. Please don't be. Just don't go there if you don't want to put in the work. Nonhlanhla here says, I've never been, so she's talking about the issue where I said you have to play the game and learn how the game is played. She says, I've never been able to play the game at the workplace. Maybe I'm not streetwise. I sometimes think some of these games can be changed to suit us Africans. I think you spoke about this last time, CSP, about the golf and all those kind of things. Do you want to talk about that? The game, what can we change, what we can't change, how long is it going to take us to change how the game is played, and what do we do in the meantime?
You know, here's the reality. The reality is that there are corporate games, there are strategic games, there are games of tact, you know. People read The Art of War and they want to come and implement in the workplace. But it's a war zone. It's a war zone there. So you need to be able to maneuver. You need to be able to do things without compromising yourself. But you need to be aware. The important thing is the awareness. You know, when you are aware that there are corporate games here, it becomes easy for you to then navigate. It's a problem if you are not even aware. You are sitting there and you're going, you know, you need to have some kind of awareness. You know what, I've entered a war zone. This is a battlefield, so I need to find a way of walking and not stepping on landmines. And it's a very tactful thing to do. It's a balancing of things, because the likelihood is that sometimes you will do things that will make people victimize you. Sometimes you will make things that are going to make certain people, certain races, certain genders very uncomfortable. And so you need to know that when you reach that space of discomfort, how do you maneuver so that it is not to your disadvantage? But there has never been a discussion about gender and about race that has been comfortable. So I don't know how to answer Unontlantla, but it is, for me, it is be aware that there are games and then find a way that is suitable to your personality that allows you to work around these corporate games.
Oh, I'm on mute, I'm talking to myself. Yes, Dr. P?
No, I'm saying it's true and then that acknowledgement that there are games, and then try to understand the limits within how you can play the games for you, not to actually lose yourself, but by still being yourself. And then how you can navigate that is something that we need to learn for ourselves. And then sometimes something that it might be against some of our culture anchors that we have learned the whole life in terms of where we come from. But if it needs to be done, then you will find that place where you can be your best in it.
Yep.
Another thing, Dr. J, that I left out is reaching out to forebears. You know, the people that have walked this road. Reach out to people that you know have sat on boards and say, you know, I have this particular thing. How do I deal with it? I do that a lot. I reach out to people and I say, you know, I'm faced with something like this. How do I navigate it? How do I work around it? Or how do I confront it without making or whatever, you know, without breaking relationships, so to speak. Yeah. And so people then advise you, because some would have burnt their fingers, you know, and sometimes you're asked to do something and you feel uncomfortable, ask someone else and say, how do I handle this? You lose nothing by reaching out to others instead of playing clever there and making mistakes that you shouldn't have made.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. Thank you, Sis P. We need to start wrapping up. We are 3 minutes after 12:30. Dr. P, let's start with you. Wrapping up, so culture, just 2 or 3 things that maybe you can advise in terms of how do we navigate this space and what are the streetwise games that maybe you can give some few tips in terms of how do we make this happen and how do we move to the next level without really allowing other things that negatively try to really take us back, like humble and other things that are misused. How do we do that? So just a few tips or advice to other women out there who still are trying to move the ladder.
Okay. From my side, I think the first thing with regard to culture is embrace who you are and embrace where you come from, and don't compromise about that. And the culture, as for example, Phindile has mentioned, is a very beautiful thing that actually differentiates us, but also is something that makes us unique as people. Currently, corporate is looking at uniqueness of people, not the same people. You cannot, there is the saying that you cannot employ everybody that looks the same, do the same way. That will never put your organization at a competitive advantage. You need people who have different backgrounds, different skills, different way of thinking that we're going to actually make sure that the company is vibrant. So embrace the culture, embrace where you come from. And some of the streetwise things that as a person you need to do is to make sure that you actually get out of your comfort zone. I think we become too much comfortable in terms of working, and then when we don't get anywhere, we complain. So there is this saying that you cannot expect things to change if you keep on doing the same kind of things all the time. So if you actually expect a different response, you need to start doing things differently as well. So look into your life and find out, what is it that I need to do differently? And ask yourself, why are you uncomfortable with doing that? And try to actually intentionally so get yourself into groups or anything that is uncomfortable. That's the place where you're going to grow as a person. And to actually prosper in going forward, be a lifetime learner. Learn from different people, young, old, the same peers, different careers, different environment. Learn every day and make sure that when you do your for example, your stock of self in terms of how you have grown, every 3 months, try to make sure that every 3 months there's something that you have learned. If there's nothing that you have learned, start getting nervous about where you're going with your career. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. P. Sis P.
Dr. J, let me start by thanking you for opening this forum and opening up these conversations that are so difficult. And around culture, I want to tell women that they can live beyond culture. I want to say, do not allow culture to hold you back. In fact, use culture to accentuate your uniqueness, as Dr. Pheladi has said. More than anything else, don't let, not only culture, don't let anything stand in the way of your peace and your progress. If you want something, reach out and go grab it. You know, opportunities are galore these days. And if you have the resources to take those opportunities, indeed, go for them. Don't let anyone hold you back. Don't let a husband hold you back. Don't let children hold you back. Don't let church hold you back, you know, but explore more of yourself, because if you do, then a whole lot of people benefit from you having explored more of yourself.
Okay, thank you, Sis P. So yeah, this brings us to the end of our conversation today. From my side, then the last ways that I would like to emphasize that came out of the conversation is that be competent. Being a woman is not a competence. Being Black is not a competence. Be competent. Work hard, and when you get there, deliver. Don't just sit there and hope that you're just going to get things because you are Black or because you are a woman, because then you make the other woman that comes after you to struggle, and people never believe that then you will find a competent Black woman. Be competent, be competent, be competent. Unfortunately, you can't buy competence. You have to put the work. The hours you put, the kind of stuff you read, the kind of friendships you have, those are people that feed into your journey. And make sure that your journey is all about being competent, be at peace with yourself, make sure you prioritize yourself, and enjoy life. We are not in this world as women to suffer, to work hard for other people, to make other people happy. Was it Sis P who said you matter? You are an important factor in that equation. If mommy is not happy, the kids are not happy. If wife is not happy, the husband is not happy. So first, take care of yourself, love yourself. I always say love yourself as if nobody else loves you. Take care of yourself as if nobody else can take care of you. So be the standard for yourself. Thank you all for joining us. It was lovely having you. We hope that you gained something and you are going to go out there and be competent and show that there is excellent, wonderful, hardworking Black women in South Africa. Thank you. Enjoy your evening, and thank you for spending your time with us. Okay, bye.
Thank you, audience.
Okay, stop live streaming.